Hey, karibu sana. There's a greeting in Kenya, they say, hakuna matata, meaning there is no trouble. But let me tell you what, right now, let's not go there. Welcome to my YouTube channel. I'm continuing to share my story from this book. Some of the things that are not written will come up as I share my story, and others that are right here. It's been an enjoyable moment, walking and even reflecting for myself, reflecting and looking back and seeing the hand of God, both in my life and also in the ministry. Today we'll look at, the chapter on transitions, transiting from Rosedale to Kenya, Machakos, and then from Machakos to Thika. I thought I was just coming for a brief time, but now it's over 40 years since I came back. So anyway, I packed my, after doing 2 diplomas at Rosedale, I had people willing to pay for me to go and finish my degree in Messiah University. That didn't happen. I packed my bags and into the plane and back to Kenya. I didn't have a degree per se. I had a diploma. Now, in Kenya, or the perception, or people here, when you go to America, they expect you to come back with a lot of education and also with a lot of money. I had none of those. So I settled back to Machakos, where I had left a wife and 2 children, Catherine and Moses. Settled back there. See, before I went to Rosedale to study, I was a school teacher. I had taught for 4 years. Coming back, I'd struggled with the issue of going full-time ministry without teaching. The question was, how will I support myself? Finances were very rare, or not forthcoming, and so accepting to go full-time, I did with a condition. I told God, well, God, I'm going to give 2 years to serve you after college. You see, the government of Kenya, the Minister of Education, TSC, had given me unpaid study leave. That is the letter I had, unpaid study leave. So, meaning I was still in employment, but I was not going to be paid anything. So I came back and I said, Lord, I will serve you for 2 years. Take advantage of that unpaid study leave. I won't tell them that I'm back into the country. So I settled down in Machakos and began to commute back and forth between Machakos and Thika. I would come some days to take care of the flock. There was a little fellowship that was growing. When I preached in 1980, August, with some friends, in the middle of our term at Rosedale, we started, a little fellowship. And I left a brother by the name of Peter Kibe, who was my assistant in RBM, in charge. He was running this fellowship. It was very hard for him. There were like 20, 25 people when I came back, and I continued coming to minister to them. We had challenges of traveling. I didn't have a vehicle. I would hitch, hike, and sometimes I had money to pay for transport. So it was back and forth. At the little fellowship, we did not give offerings. We needed money to pay for rent, because we were renting. We did not pass a basket to collect offerings. Some of the elders that I had those days, their understanding was different. And so they would tell people, if the Lord has touched you to give an offering, on your way out, you can leave it at the door. So they would put a plate there, and few people would drop a few coins that was not even enough to pay for rent. So I was not financially supported. And after doing that for several months, it was time to move and live in Thika. We had a camp in Mangu High School, and it was time to move. It was August of 1981. We had a camp there, and I was busy in the camp. I prepared the family in Machakos, and I hired a pickup truck, an open at the back to carry our beds, our few utensils that we had to Thika, and the children and my wife. So my wife Betty and our 2 children were transported on that little pickup. We call it a pickup truck. So they came and found me at Mangu High School in the middle of sessions. We were busy preaching, counseling, and so here they arrived. I had arranged for a house that was going to be empty. On that particular day, it was available for rent. It was very hard to get rental houses in Thika that time. The industries were thriving. They were going on, and people were getting jobs. Getting accommodation was quite a challenge. So I'll never forget when we arrived at the house I was promised. The family was still there. It was intact. And so we offloaded our things outside. And I don't remember how we later moved in. I forgot when they had to move away and when we had to move in, but it was quite a challenge. I picked up then the church, and I picked up also the RBM, Regions Beyond Ministry. We were printing the newsletter from our house, doing the work from our house, and doing with a Xerox machine, and print out the newsletter that way. But by the time I was coming to to Thika, we had started with Eastern Printing Works in Machakos for them to print our newsletter, which was going out every so many months, to tell people what we are doing and share about the ministry. So while in Thika, I would be going back and forth to do the printing of the newsletter. I would tell you of how I crashed in Machakos, and a Land Rover rammed behind me, and the man that was next to me saw what happened. He expected that I was dead. I was picked up, I was unconscious, taken up to Machakos Hospital, and expected that I was dead. The news went around Machakos that there was a man killed next to the mortuary. We call it a mortuary, but America they call it a morgue. The news went around that a man had been knocked down and killed. This man was next to me, went to work, but he couldn't work. He was so scared that it could have been him. So he asked for an off from work. He was let off from work, and then he walked through the hospital to find out the real story, whether it's true, to confirm that I was dead. He came and he was told I'm in the ward. I had been admitted in the ward there, so he came to see me and he told me the story. How when he went back, he really prayed and thanked God that he was not involved in that accident, and that the man next to him was not lucky, and that was me, that he was told by people I had died. Thank God. I survived that accident. Let's come back to Thika. Transport was quite a challenge. When I started working, I didn't have a vehicle. I had a motorcycle that I was bought by a young man. I stayed with a family in Orville, Ohio. Pete Stauffer, his young son, Dave Stauffer, while in high school, he had some savings that he bought a motorcycle for me and sent it by ship to come over to Kenya, and that is what I was using. It was a red Suzuki. That is what I used for traveling around, carrying my wife. We went for fellowships, we went for missions, we went for different things. Now, you see, I had an unpaid study leave. But when I came back, I found that the TAC, or the Minister of Education, did not discontinue my salary. they kept on putting the money in the bank, my bank account. And because I was not operating that bank account, I never checked, So surprising, going to the bank, finding all this money, I was shocked. So I inquired what would happen if I spent that money. And if I would go to, Ministry of Education, TSC, and ask them that I be paying, I take it as a loan, they turn it and make it a loan. And that's exactly what happened. Because my wife was still a school teacher, I took that money, and I was witnessing around the garages here, the workplaces here. There was a car that someone I had preached to, a brother, told me that this car is good, but it was on stones. It didn't have tires, and it had stayed there for long. He told me this car would be very, very good. It was a Toyota station wagon. The registration was KNK 981. I've never forgotten. KNK. That is what I ended up by buying with that money from TSC. And then they attached my wife's salary to be paying little by little and to, finish up that debt. And that's exactly what happened. I had a free loan, bought that car, began to use it for ministry. This car served us a lot. That Toyota station wagon, people call it Kazi na Kazi. I'll never forget when I carried 12 people coming from a rally. 12 people. The problem was oxygen inside that vehicle. So we had to have all the windows open so that you can, it was seriously packed, both the boot and the middle and in the front. I forget how many we were in the front here. I had to drive on one side, part of my body was outside holding the steering, because here I think there were like 4 people. Man, that was quite a challenge. Of course, I've stretched a little bit here. But it was very interesting using K&K for missions, at that time. Regions Beyond Ministry picked up seriously in the schools, in the colleges. We went to the streets. And then the church also was growing. It grew to the point that I needed people to assist me. I was the only one full-time. I didn't have a salary. But RBM began to give me 1,000 shillings at the end of the month as my salary. I took a step of faith and needed someone to assist me. And so I went for Duncan Bogo Wanjigi in Kianyaga Boys. Never forget walking into their compound. They were just I think they were either 2 years in marriage. And I told Bishop Bogo today, he's bishop, I told him that I am calling you to come and serve with me on a full-time, basis. Now, if he asked any question about salary or anything, I had nothing. See, even myself, my salary was 1,000 shillings. And the year before, that 1,000 shillings, when they told me that we had no money to employ a secretary, I gave up part of that money, 600 shillings. So I remained with 400 shillings per month. That is what I would take home at the end of the month. People look at us and think, oh my goodness, you started up there, you started with money. No, that was my salary. At the church, there was nothing. Remember, we said, if God has touched you to give, you can leave it at the door. And that money wasn't enough for rent, to rent the place we were using for worship. My goodness. Bishop Bogo obeyed. When I called him and invited him, he resigned from his teaching position, his full-time teaching position. He came to join me both at the ministry full-time and also at the church full-time. 1983. That's when he came. At that time, I had been invited to go back to America to do a mission. And so I left Bishop Bogo to take care of the ministry. And I can say right here, Bishop Bogo was and is very committed, very faithful. When you leave your assistant to take care of your work, many times people come back after going for a long mission, you discovered they have split the church. They have split the ministry. I saw loyalty in the man Bishop Duncan Bogo. And I believe God will remember him for that faithfulness, that loyalty, that commitment. He was committed in serving me and serving the ministry. He looked up to me as his father, as his boss, as his spiritual authority, and surely he carried it to the best of his knowledge and his heart. Now, my first car was K&K, jumped from the motorcycle to a vehicle, carried people going for missions. Oh my, did we preach the word in the schools, in the colleges. People came to the faith. Today, I have met many people. Actually, every month or so, I'm meeting somebody who says, you came to my school, I heard you preach, I gave my life to Jesus Christ, I am different. Right this week that I'm sharing with you this, a lady comes in and says, you met me in my high school, 1979, you preached to me, I got saved, I have never been the same, and I want to thank you that you brought the good news to my high school, and I became a believer. I am what I am today because of that preaching you did in my high school. My goodness. Looking back, I praise God. I praise God. I want to go on, but I praise God for what has happened. That today there are many leaders who are in the ministry because we preached to them during that time. In 1983, I got my first salary from the church. They gave me 1,200 shillings. And that 1,200 shillings was to pay for rent. Because I was traveling overseas, my wife's salary was very little. She was a P2. It wasn't enough to cater for the family needs and to pay rent. The church, the first time, they gave me 1,200 shillings. When I had gone to them to ask for a consideration, I'll never forget what the leader said. The elders just looked at me and said, well, you can take the money. Whenever you need it, take it. And I saw a very big temptation in years to come that if I continue, whenever I have a need, I go and take. Then I'll be taking money from the treasury, money that it's for a want and not for a need. I had learned that from the Mennonite church to be organized in the area of finances. And that one I did not fall for it. I refused. I said, you have to determine what to be giving me, but not me deciding to go into the treasury and take money. That's how, it was in the local church. And I want to thank you for watching Bishop Mulandi YouTube. I hope you have been blessed and inspired by this video. Please subscribe, like, comment, and share this video. You can also hit this notification bell so that when I post a new video, you'll be notified. There are many more great videos in this channel. Please keep watching. God bless you. Let's meet again in the next episode.